What does The Dark Knight, Seven, Taxi Driver, John Wick, and Blade Runner have in common? Well, they're all different variations of the same genre. Sure, at first glance, it's not that obvious, but neo-noir is a very expansive and interesting genre, with a great selection of cinematic bangers. Even some of the best contemporary directors were cutting their teeth with stories of anti-heroes, ambivalent mysteries, deceptive femme fatales, and elusive truths. But where does this genre come from? Isn't it just a shinier, more modern noir iteration? Well, yes and no. Yes, as it continues in the footsteps of its precursor, but no, as it's a more self-aware progression that goes beyond the limits of noir. You see, noir is a term we use retroactively to categorize those sleuth movies of the 40s and 50s, from films like The Maltese Falcon to Orson Welles' Touch of Evil. Back then, these filmmakers weren't thinking that they were expanding on a genre. That classification came from an outsider perspective, from the French that had an interest in these dark American stories. Although, the big difference with the current genre and its precursor is the expansion of its ambivalence. Back in the early 30s and late 60s, there was a censure on certain things that were deemed immoral. The Hays Production Code regulated and minimized the use of blood, acts of violence, and sexuality. If a villain committed a crime, then by the end of the movie, the criminal would have to be punished. Justice had to be served. But not in neo-noir. That's why we see a rise of narratives where the main character doesn't catch the killer, where justice is far too murky, and all we are left with are loose ends. Welcome to the Screen Film Club, I'm your curator Moses, and today we'll be exploring the fascinating reoccurring patterns of the puzzling and obscure neo-noir genre. And since we'll be talking about how some of these movies end, some spoilers will follow. And today's video is kindly sponsored by Surfshark, but more on that midway.
You're a very nosy fellow, kitty cat, huh? You know what happens to nosy fellows? Huh? No? Wanna guess?
We start by taking a look at the protagonist that must maneuver these uncomfortable stories of crime and mystery. An unconventional character unequipped with the qualities and virtues that inhabit an ideal or even normal hero. The word hero never seems to fit the noir protagonist, for his world is devoid of the moral framework necessary to produce the traditional hero. Here it's referring to the classic noir protagonist, but the meaning hasn't changed, only deepened. The neo-noir anti-hero is born out of pessimism and alienation. If his precursor was a byproduct of post-war anxieties, this mutation is a manifestation of the cultural disillusionment of the time. In the late 60s and early 70s, we see an America that doesn't buy into the American dream and image as easily as it used to, still suffering the fresh wounds of events like the Vietnam War and the Watergate scandal. There is just a growing sense of national mistrust and uncertainty that dovetails perfectly with the era's postmodern view, the relativism of values and morality. These anti-heroes are symptoms of this social ambiguity. That's why a lot of neo-noir characters have very distorted moral compasses and are representations of inverted archetypes. The corrupt cop, politician, or authority figure like in Chinatown, or in LA Confidential, where the antagonist is the systemic abuse of power of law enforcement. We also see the use of the benevolent hitman, like in John Wick, getting revenge for his dog's death. Leon the professional taking in Matilda after her family was murdered. Joe from You Were Never Really Here trying to save Nina from a prostitution ring. Or the example of the incongruous polite criminal, to whom murder can seem less of an affront than not tipping your waitress.
What do you mean you don't believe in it? Come on, you, cough up a bucket, cheap bastard.
Not bringing flowers to visit the sick mother of the man you're currently holding hostage.
She carried you in her womb for 9 months. People buy flowers, buy flowers.
Arriving late to a pre-kidnapping meeting, or giving a married woman a foot massage. But we also have the contrast of the everyday person giving into a dark side. Like in Fargo, a suburban meek husband stages the kidnapping of his wife to get the ransom money from his father-in-law. In Prisoners, it's a father ready to do anything to find his daughter, even torture a mentally challenged man.
We heard him. Until he talks, are they gonna die? That's the choice.
Some neo-noir characters are either on the path to perdition or redemption. The corruption of oneself, what they stand for or represent, or to absolve from a past, to try and right a wrong. An extreme representation of the conflicting duality of human nature, that both light and darkness can inhabit the same person, that we are both capable of destruction and restoration. A person can be the breaker and the broken, the unforgiving and the merciful. a hero, and a vigilante.
Where are you headed?
Far away from here.
When discussing neo-noir, it's important to keep in mind its two cycles. The first being the modernist period that started in the late 1960s, with movies like Point Blank or Bonnie and Clyde. This period embraced its genre and explored its limits with crueler crimes and more sexual undertones. The second is the postmodern cycle that started in the 80s and expanded into different genres. They also became much more self-referential and experimental with the medium. What I find interesting is that it doesn't seem like this cycle has ended, or perhaps it has morphed into something else that just doesn't have a name yet. But one thing is clear, that over 50 years of the evolution of neo-noir, we keep being pulled in by these stories of crime and mystery, just like the genre's characters. When we were exploring the neo-western genre, we spoke about characters living in the outskirts and in the frontiers of America. But in neo-noir, the setting is quite different. It takes place in very populated areas, and most of the times, in a variant of LA. And here the threat is shown to be much closer, maybe just under our noses, or around the next corner. All you have to do is scratch the surface, and it will lead you to something you didn't know was hiding. In Pulp Fiction, one bad turn into a shop leads Butch and Marcellus to an unforgettable encounter. In Collateral, Max's next passenger takes him on a night of murder and mayhem. In Blue Velvet, the discovery of a severed ear will give Jeffrey a peek into the criminal underworld. In Chinatown, a seemingly mundane case of infidelity leads private investigator Jake Gittes to uncover a large-scale corruption, giving us a sense that even in our daily routine, we are in close proximity to a random darkness. The neo-noir protagonist is charged to navigate this mystery and to unearth the threat, to collect the clues, find the killer, and solve the case. But as the detectives keep searching, the paths become more confusing, and the mystery has lured them into a city-wide complex maze. Jake Gittes is successful at finding out how all the different dots connect to each other, but at the same time, he's also being diverted. At first, just like him, we don't even notice it. The name of the movie is Chinatown, but for a while, we don't even know why, since none of the events of that movie are happening at that location. Then, little by little, we're clued in that Chinatown is actually part of Jake's past as a cop. For him, it represents a no-win scenario, and sadly, no matter how much he has advanced and moved on in life, he's brought back to the place where he's always been defeated.
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
In Seven, Somerset is also trying to escape. He's had a long career as a detective, and he's had enough.
I don't understand this place any longer.
It's the way it's always been.
Maybe you're right.
He even tries to sober his new optimistic partner to the reality of the nameless city, that there is no winning, that even if you find the clues, catch the killer, you still end up failing. Somerset's pessimism is later painfully asserted, that there seems to be no exit from the maze.
Where are you gonna be?
Around.
Memento takes this concept a step further by internalizing the maze. Here we see the postmodern narrative at work, presented in an unchronological order, showing the complicated mind of Leonard.
I know who I am, I know all about myself. Since my injury, I can't make new memories.
Neo-noir has a lot of examples of afflicted psyches, like in You Were Never Really Here, where the movie is intercut with flashbacks to represent the character's PTSD that makes him relive traumatic moments of his life, or in Nocturnal Animals, where the narrative is mixed with a secondary story, representing a metaphor of the pain the character caused her ex-husband in the past. Or like in the Chinese film Long Day's Journey into Night, where we see a dreamlike introspection of the main character's regret. In Memento, it's to heighten the stagnation. Leonard is a man that is trying to solve the murder of his wife, but he is hindered by the fact that he can't make new memories, so he is constantly re-exploring the same case for an unknown amount of time and for God knows how many iterations. Leonard is stuck reliving this internal maze, nurtured by a past he can't let go. And just like the other characters of neo-noir, either in city space or inner space, they are expected to loop back to defeat. Now, if you want to keep unwanted digital sleuths from getting into your info, then cut them down by using a VPN like the one we use from Surfshark. Not only does it give you access to a lot of content from streaming services that would otherwise remain geolocked in other countries, but most importantly, it protects your information by encrypting all the data that you send through the internet and where you're connecting from. And adding to that peace of mind, even they don't log your information. There are a lot of VPNs out there, but we prefer using Surfshark because it's one of the fastest, well-reviewed, most affordable, and offers a slew of features. Not only does it work across all platforms, but you're not limited to the number of devices you can install it on. Use Surfshark Alert that lets you know if your information appears in a leaked database, or Surfshark Search to prevent ads or trackers to follow your searches. I could go on, but I recommend you look it up on your own. Go to surfshark.deals/screened. If you use our promo code SCREENED, you will get 83% off the regular price, which means for something like a couple of bucks a month, you can be fully protected. Plus, you'll get 3 months for free. Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you try it and you don't like it, you can simply cancel your subscription and get your money back. Now, back to Neo-Noir.
Sit down.
What for?
You may think you know what you're dealing with, but believe me, you don't.
Most Neo-Noir characters are searching for the truth, or what they think it might be. The interesting thing is that the Neo-Noir stories don't always try to withhold the truth from the characters or the viewers. It can even try to confuse you by making you realize that maybe you can't trust what you're being told. In The Usual Suspects, while being interrogated, Verbal is recounting the story of events leading up to a deadly gunfight. But by the end, we realize that he's an unreliable narrator, and everything we've heard could just be a long-winded fiction. In Gone Girl, it's about not trusting what you can see. What starts as a movie about a husband possibly murdering his wife turns into an exploration on appearances and counter-narratives, a fight for the most convincing lie, because the truth is far too complicated. We don't really want the truth, we want a good story. In Blade Runner, appearances can also be misleading. Deckard is a Blade Runner that must capture 4 escaped replicants, androids that look exactly like humans. But as things progress, it turns into a re-examination of what he thought was real, a truth that's hard to accept. Or even worse, in Oldboy, Odayasu has lived with a 15-year itch for the truth of who imprisoned him for so long and why. But once all is revealed, it's so disturbing he wishes he could forget. Here, what's worse than searching for the truth is actually finding it. Like in Memento, the truth for Leonard is that he can't tell who he is anymore, but one thing's for sure is that he's far gone from who he used to be. Rather than accepting that his wife's killer is already dead, and that he's murdered several people that had nothing to do with it, he decides to reset into a comforting lie. The truth can be too hard to handle, because it can change who we think we are.
So you lie to yourself to be happy. There's nothing wrong with that. We all do it. Who cares if there's a few little details you'd rather not remember?
A great symbol that can summarize this concept is actually a very simple one, hiding in plain sight as a decorative item of the noir genre. I'm sure you've seen them before. It's something as innocuous as the blinds. They want to announce the theme of the movie, that the movie will be about light and darkness, knowledge and evasion of knowledge, the search for knowledge, the cost of knowledge, that the shadows are a bit more comforting than the blinding glare of the light. The neo-noir protagonist, their search for the truth, the duality of the city and the characters, the return of the past and the lie we tell ourselves turns into a metaphor for an identity crisis. The consciousness is trying to uncover a trauma, but the subconscious is suppressing our efforts. We can catch a glimpse of it, but as we get close, it quickly disappears, because to fully view who we are can be too much to bear. I hope you liked our broad look into neo-noir. Honestly, I feel we only scratched the surface of this very interesting genre. If you would like to learn more, definitely read the very helpful book, The Philosophy of Neo-Noir. Next week, we'll give you a non-spoiler list of movies you should watch, but we also want your opinion. So let us know down in the comments what are your favorite neo-noir films and why. And your comments might be featured in the next video. Before you go, make sure to be notified so you don't miss out on any videos or community posts. Don't forget to like, share with a friend, and subscribe to the Film Club so it can keep on growing. The music was made by Eduardo Gonzalez. If you like his work, check his information down in the description. See you next week at the Film Club.